Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Jordan here from SwitchWatch. Today I've got a review of the Coma Recut, a very unique game by South Korean developer Digerati Games and published on the Nintendo Switch by Digerati, who we've covered a fair bit recently. Thanks to them for providing a review code, and we're going to find out if this game is worth your hard-earned cash. Is it? Let's find out. The Coma is a wild mix of genres, making it very difficult to pigeonhole. But on the other hand, it makes it a very unique experience that you really can't get elsewhere. I'd personally describe the Coma as a survival horror adventure game with stealth elements. Let's begin with talking about the story. Set in a Korean high school and somewhat inspired by the high-pressure education system of the country is known for, the Coma stars Young Ho, a student at Sewa High. After long grueling studying sessions, he only goes and makes the rookie error of falling asleep in the final exam. After already receiving signs of things not being quite as they seem, what with the attempted suicide of a schoolmate and a mysterious new student hanging around, Young Ho wakes up at his desk in the early hours of the morning, alone. Or so he thinks. It's not long before a twisted version of your homeroom teacher appears, wanting Young Ho's blood, hacking and slashing at him with a blade. After making your escape, it's clear that you are not where you seem to be. Without wanting to spoil the story, Young Ho attempts to escape this nightmare and unravel the mystery behind it. You meet seemingly friendly people, although you're never sure who you can truly trust. Optional background story can be found by picking up the almost too frequent notes left around the school. If you want to pick these up, you'll literally be stopping every few seconds. That side can be a tad overwhelming, but if you just focus on the main story, I'd say you've got a very interesting premise that's enjoyable to watch unfold, even if the writing is somewhat awkward at times. As stated, the gameplay is a mix of survival horror with adventure game and stealth elements thrown in. You walk on a 2D plane around the malevolent high school corridors, entering classrooms, staff rooms, and toilets, avoiding the deadly stalker who can strike at any time. You have a few abilities to stave off the attacks, but you cannot defend yourself. You have a dodge roll though, which can avoid knife swipes pretty well. While this will save you losing health, it won't help you lose your assailant. In order for you to effectively get her away from you, you need to hide. Enter a classroom, bathroom, whatever, find the nearest hiding place such as a cupboard or a cubicle, and then wait. As long as the crazed stalker didn't see you enter the hiding place, you will be safe and she will eventually get bored and search elsewhere. Hiding places aren't always so frequent, and so you do have a technique where you can hold your breath and crouch down in the dark. Again, as long as she wasn't in the room when you began doing that, she won't notice you. It sounds great, right? Well, life's not that easy. Young Ho has a stamina meter which will deplete while holding his breath, meaning you can only do it for a handful of seconds. Couple that with the sprinting and door opening both taking your stamina too, means that there's very little room for error for this technique to work. I'll give the game some credit, when this works it's incredibly tense. To be honest, the unnerving suspense of when the predator will pounce soon wore off. It wasn't long until the curtains behind the game fell down and the facade was shown off. It's just random. You exit a room, there's a chance the killer will appear, there's a chance they won't. The persistence and frequency of their appearance makes it completely lose its effectiveness. I found my patience with the game left when I had to exit and re-enter a medical room 8 times as the killer spawned every time I left. It wasn't scary or tense by this point, but annoying and time wasting. The game's balance is all wrong. Because of how frequently she turns up and how infrequent hiding places can be, you're going to die a lot. After you die, you can only begin again from where you last saved the game. Yes, no autosaves. To save your game, you need to use blackboards in the classrooms or occasionally in the corridors. I actually like this idea, reminiscent of games where you used to write in diaries or typewriters. On the other hand, it can make the game to be rather brutal. If you're careless or unlucky to be too far away from blackboards, you can lose a fair bit of progress if you get hacked to death. While I personally don't mind this lack of autosaves, I think many modern gamers will be frustrated. I found the controls to be quite troublesome if I'm honest, puzzlingly so. I don't know why, but button pressing seemed to be very unresponsive. I often had to press a button multiple times just for it to register. I mostly noticed this with text boxes, usually having to press it 3 times to get it to notice. That's not a huge deal, despite being annoying. It's when it interferes with the main gameplay that it becomes a big issue. Can't open doors quick enough, having to press it 3 or 4 times to open your flashlight. It just became a mystifying chore. How did this happen? It's not my controller since I tried multiple ones just to make sure. I'm sure this can be patched and hopefully will. Visually, the game is a mixed bag in my opinion. I think the art style is nice, the hand-drawn anime style is pretty good, the characters are well drawn and visually appealing, but I'm not entirely sure the overall style of the game suits the horror theme. While the environments have been rendered in a more eerie and ominous manner, and they've tried showing off some unnerving visuals, they just don't really pay off thanks to the cartoony nature of the art style. Seeing classmates hanging from the ceiling should be a horrifying, shocking sight, but it just lacks punch here. It needed to be more grungy or eccentric, something more visually disturbing. Audio should play a massive part in any horror-themed game. It should build tension and fear to the player with subtle noises and creaks, and that's exactly what's done here. The audio design is very creepy with random noises, violin shrills, and of course the unmistakable sound of your stalker charging at you, her footsteps banging with high-tension music. The sound design is top-notch in my opinion, and one of the standout parts of the game. As you may have guessed from the rather clever subtitle, this is actually a director's cut version of the original game titled The Coma Cutting Class, which was released a few years ago. While I've never played that game and can't vouch for what I'm told, apparently this recut has added to the visuals, animation, and also gameplay mechanics. Considering my criticism of the game so far, it's fair to say I'm a little perplexed as to how a seemingly unpolished game is actually a remaster. You do have to question the value the Coma Recut presents. With the hefty price tag currently sitting at £17.99, it's definitely at the higher end of the eShop spectrum. Is it worth that hard-earned money of yours? Well, if you've been paying attention to this review, you already know the answer to that. The only thing I could say about the Coma that would justify your hard-earned cash is the unique and highly promising premise. It's a fantastic concept for a game, and more things like this need to be done. But the level of polish is not good enough, and the lack of balanced gameplay just don't match the price. Knock a tenner off that and you may get a maybe from me. Overall, I found the Coma Recut to be an interesting but flawed game. The concept is fantastic, but I think the gameplay is a little too on the unpolished side. Odd considering this is supposed to be a polished remaster. The fantastic premise of being stalked in a malevolent high school is slightly squandered by unbalanced gameplay elements and the quick unveiling of how random and how too frequent the killer's appearance is. It can become a chore to play at times, and they really should have focused more on building the tension of when the killer could appear rather than them constantly turning up. I don't claim to be a game designer of any kind, but I think Dev Espresso Games should take this feedback and produce a more balanced and polished sequel that could actually be something a little special. As it is, the Coma Recut is just too rough around the edges to recommend. It does have its good points, but it also has far too many flaws for its own good. I have to give the Coma Recut a disappointing 5 out of 10. Hope you've enjoyed this review, guys. If you're a regular Switch watcher, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and a comment below to tell us what you think about the Coma Recut. Am I being too harsh, or do you think this is a fair review? If you're a new viewer, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. You definitely won't regret it, as we'll continue to give you excellent Switch reviews far into the future. Take care, guys. See you next time.